There's no doubt they're leading us to a larger war. The point is, when you learn this knowledge, you start to see all this ritualism that's going on the world stage and how it really is a show, and where all these roads lead back to, from the royal family to your sports leagues to the Oval Office to your latest Hollywood release. They are using this knowledge day in and day out. And this is largely what my work's dedicated to, exposing how it's used daily to contrive the rituals that seemingly divide the world and keep certain people in power at the top, as well as manipulate all the sports games and take advantage of the emotional energy of the fans. And yeah, you want total tyranny, you want something more unimaginable than George Orwell's 1984, that's where we're going. And that's why I've been speaking out every single day since I learned about this in 2013. And really, I've been speaking out since way before that. The reality is, if you put out truth in this world, you're going to be shadow banned. You're going to be deleted, just like yours truly has been deleted over 25 times. You're going to have cars crashing through your house on Christmas Eve. You're never going to be promoted by the system. You're never going to be brought on Joe Rogan or any of these things. There's a lot of half-truthers out here and a lot of people who will never broach the subjects that we're talking about today because it just reveals too much. It just reveals too much.
Hey, welcome back. And joining us today is Zachary K. Hubbard of Gematria Effect News, the leading voice in numerology and Gematria education since discovering this ancient Kabbalistic practice in 2013. Previously a dedicated teacher in elementary schools, teen homeless shelters, and group homes, Zach transformed his passion for teaching into a global mission, exposing how the Cabal weaponizes Gematria, coding numbers into words to orchestrate daily propaganda, rigged elections, fixed sports, and even ritualistic events, all to manipulate the public while the mainstream media perpetuates misinformation and energy theft. Zach, really good to meet you. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on.
This is a topic that is fascinating to me. I'm not intimately familiar with it other than just kind of a cursory high-level overview. For those in the audience who are not familiar with what numerology is and Gematria, could you please unpack that for us?
Sure. So numerology pertains to dates, and Gematria pertains to numbers within words. And there's an intersection of these things. And I'll just reach to yesterday to show you a classic example of how this works. So yesterday, if you're a sports fan, you might have saw that LeBron James put on a 23 patch on his uniform facing the Kings, who he started his NBA career against. Of course, he was known as King James. He once won the finals for the Cavs on the real King James's birthday, June 19th. And a lot of people missed the joke because King James' son was King Charles, and those who fought for him in the English Civil War were Cavaliers. But anyway, LeBron put a 23 patch on his jersey and got upset by the Kings, keeping the Lakers on 23 wins for the year. And meanwhile, in the world of sports, the Steelers lost on Monday Night Football, ending their 23-game home winning streak on Monday Night Football, all in the same night. And the beauty of it was it happened on a date with 23 numerology. And there's a few different paths to get a date numerology. And somebody out there who's a numerology purist would say, well, a 23 is really just a 5, and they'd be 100% correct. But it is important to extract the whole path and see the number that breaks down to the smaller digits. So if you're not familiar with numerology, what it is taking a larger number and compressing it to a single digit number. But along the way, it'll break down into other numbers. So for example, yesterday, the day these 23 rituals happened, it was January 12th, 2026. And the most simple path is just adding each digit in the day number by number. So you'd have 1 for January, plus 1 plus 2 for the 12th, plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6, which equates to 14. 14 is 1 plus 4 is 5. So that is one path. There's something called the life lesson number path. In this one, you add the day and the month as the digits that they are. So it's 1 plus 10, or yesterday it was 12. So 1 plus 12, so that's 13. But then you do the year digit by digit, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6, which is 10 more, so 23. So we had a life lesson number of 23. Again, we had a 14 path, a 23 path. They're always going to break down to the same single digit. 14 is 1 plus 4 is 5. 2 plus 3 is 5. There's also a larger number path, and that's where you add the day plus the month plus the year in 2 sections. So it looks like 1 plus 12 plus 20 plus 26, which equals 59. 59 is 5 plus 9 is 14. 1 plus 4 is 5. The reason you want to know these paths is if you're somebody like me who likes to take advantage of sports and the market and crypto. This knowledge is applicable to all. You study numbers, you'll start to see this is the way the game is rigged. Certain hockey team last night was going for their 59th points, had some 23 and 14s in the record, looked like a lights out game to pick. Yeah, they're going to pick up their 59th points. The 23 and 14 are going to hit in the win and loss. That happened. Look at the Lakers last night. They fell to 23 and 14 with the 23 patch on LeBron's uniform. And again, the Steelers' home winning streak, again, ended at 23 on Monday Night Football. Now, the Gematria piece, this is the practice of coding numbers into words. So I learned this from Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages. That book's coming up on being 100 years old. For anyone not familiar with Manly P. Hall, if you ever want to research the occult, not because you want to, somebody will just hear that word and they get frightened. I like to research information for the sake of knowledge is power. And I understand, a lot of people in high prominent positions in this world, they're in secret societies. Secret societies are based in the occult. Case in point. The long story short, everything I'm talking about is related to Kabbalah. Freemasonry is based in Kabbalah. Freemasonry is very prominent in this nation's founding, as well as all of these major American sports. There's a reason they do this. But within Kabbalah, for anyone who wants to look into it, there's a book called The Book of Formation. It's a Kabbalistic text. It's a short read, but the opening paragraph says God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. And again, the knowledge of Kabbalah originally pertains to Hebrew, where it's understood that every letter is a number, just like ancient Greek, just like Aramaic, which are the original biblical languages. As Manly P. Hall revealed, this knowledge has been incorporated into English. And once upon a time, I put that to the test, and I've learned a lot. Again, I started with this in 2013. But, okay. There are 4 base ciphers of the English language, and they're very simple. It's the alphabetic order. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, up to Z is 26. The word end, a 3-letter word. E would be the 5th letter of the alphabet. N would be the 14th letter. D would be the 4th. So 5 plus 14 plus 4 is 23. The Steelers' 23-game win streak ends on 23-date numerology, and we'll get to how Mike Tomlin got fired the very next day. That's the coach of the Steelers, if you follow football. It just couldn't be any more perfect the way they did it. It was also the end of his career. Now, the next cipher is the alphabetic order with numerology applied to each letter. So, for example, end, E would still be the 5th letter because it's already a single-digit number. N, the 14th letter, becomes 1 plus 4 is 5. 1 plus 4 is 5. D is the 4th letter. So this way you have 5 plus 5 plus 4, 14, the small way. And remember, this date numerology had 14 and 23 in its past as this win streak ends. The next 2 ciphers are just running the alphabetic order in reverse. Z is 1 back to A is 26, and running it in reverse with numerology applied to each letter. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So when you take the alphabetic order with numerology, the word king equates to 23. LeBron, known as King James, who started his career versus the Kings, has worn 23 for the majority of his career. He gets this 23 patch on in his 23rd season on 23-date numerology as his team gets upset, staying on 23 wins for the year. If you don't apply numerology, the word king, K would be the 11th letter, I would be the 9th, N would be the 14th, G would be the 7th. King equals 41. That's how old LeBron is right now. He just turned 41 on December 30th. So at age 41, they honor him with this 23rd season. And the casual fan might think, 23 is not really a big milestone. Normally, we're a base 10 people, maybe the 20th year or the 25th year. Why the 23rd year? Somebody will say, well, it's because he wore 23 for his whole career. Yeah, okay, but still, not a typical milestone that's celebrated 23. But the beauty of recognizing the ritualism, the way it's done, is, again, understanding that it is all numbers-based. Again, all of the major American sports are credited to Freemasons. In the case of basketball, it's Naismith. In the case of baseball, it's Abner Doubleday. In the case of the NFL, it's Walter Camp. All of these men are Masons. Again, Masonry is based in Kabbalah. This practice of coding numbers into words is a component of Kabbalah. It's part of the reason the Masons etch all his number on the temple. The Masons venerate Pythagoras, the Greek some people say the first Freemason, but again, Pythagoras was known for having a secret society where they studied these occult practices with numbers, including what we would call gematria now. Or in Greek, the same practice is known as isopsophy. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Revelation 13:18 about calculating the number of a man, the number of a beast. That's a Greek isopsophy riddle. But I hope that was a good explanation of what numerology is in gematria and how they can intersect. And again, from sports to what your government's doing day after day, you learn this, you'll see right through it.
Wow. Okay. So I'm just kind of taking it all in. And when you mention about, or it was referenced that God encoded numbers and letters as part of the universe, you're making me think of kind of like simulation theory. Does that kind of tie in with that? Is that fair?
I don't know if you know Sam Tripoli, Joe Rogan's old wingman. He runs the Tinfoil Hat podcast. The first time I did his show, that's what his mind went to, and that's now what he runs with ever since. He thinks we're living in some kind of simulation. A lot of people go there. Again, it's possible.
Sure. And okay, so the Cabal, could you excuse me? Yeah, I guess if you could. I mean, I'm familiar with well, I'll just rephrase that. Could you unpack who and or what the Cabal is in the works that you've distilled?
Yeah. So again, we are supposedly in the new year, and the only reason we're in the new year is because of the Catholic Church and largely the Jesuit priest Christopher Clavius, who introduced the Gregorian calendar in tribute to the Pope. And just for the record, the most simple cipher, Pope, P would be the 16th letter, O would be the 15th, C would be the 16th, E the 5th, added up, 52, 52-week calendar for the Pope. For if you didn't know that this calendar we're on is for the Pope. And like we got the new Pope on May 8th. Pope Leo the 14th equals 58. He replaced Pope Francis, which also equals 58, who became a Jesuit in 1958. And of course, Trump got 312 electoral college votes, and then the Pope died on the 312th day of his age, which was the Chicago area code. And then we get the first American Pope from Chicago, who also studied in Philadelphia at Villanova in the 267 area code as he becomes the 267th Pope in the history of the church. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is it's the Catholic Church that is behind all of this. They are responsible for the English language. If you look into the history of the English language, the oldest script goes back to a Catholic monk, Burfirth of Ramsey Abbey. And at the end of the 16th century, when the Jesuits introduced the Gregorian calendar that says we're now in the year 2026, and we're on their time, at that same point, it was Jesuit priests who are responsible for standardizing the 26-letter alphabet and the spellings that we've agreed to today. And again, that was shortly after English Bibles came out that were being numbered for the first time. And it's a lot to get into, but the numbering sequence in the Bible is very much coordinated with the language and the calendar. And as I've been explaining, it's pretty much used as a ritual system, seemingly for world domination. A point that should be made about this Kabbalah thing. Genesis 3:22, right at the beginning of the Bible. It mentions the tree of life and knowing good and evil. And the tree of life is what's known as the physical model for Kabbalah. Kabbalah, the tree of life, has 3 pillars and 22 paths, like Genesis 3:22. And there's a good half of Kabbalah, and there's an evil half. The good half is just understanding the organic side of numbers and the relationship with God and ourselves, and traditionally studied within the Torah, within Hebrew. The evil half is about using the knowledge to have influence over others. And there's believed to be a sorcery component to it. And this is largely what my work's dedicated to, exposing how it's used daily to contrive the rituals that seemingly divide the world and keep certain people in power at the top, as well as manipulate all the sports games and take advantage of the emotional energy of the fans.
So it basically seems that most of these events that go on are theatrics.
Yes, the world is a stage.
Oh my God. Okay. So, it's funny is this is what I've been going down the rabbit hole more and more, Zach. So, boy, okay. I'm just digesting this here and collecting my thoughts. It's kind of funny because I feel like to most lay people, when you think of, what's going on in the world, whether it's domestically or just, geopolitically, you think that there are rational actors. There are actors that have or express agency, autonomy at their own decision making level. They each have their own interests, or there's different factions. But it seems that as you go more and more down the rabbit hole, that there is an element of theatrics at play, and that there's this kind of kayfabe that goes on. Can you kind of perhaps tie in with current events or things that are going on? I know you like to use sports as a reference, and feel free to please do so. But I guess if you can kind of unpack that more, the theatrical elements of it, to just kind of provide a further rendering to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to keep things current so people aren't thinking I'm having to reach way back in the archive to make my points. The biggest story, would you agree, in the United States right now is what's going on in Minnesota with the Renee Nicole Good killing and ICE and the deployment of more federal forces. It's probably the biggest story right now in the nation. But again, things are always moving faster. We just had Venezuela. I could talk about that. We got threats against Iran and seemingly half the world by the latest puppet president. So the Renee Nicole Good killing. There's so many things that people should just pick up on. Supposedly, she won an award for being a poet in 2020, the year of George Floyd, which obviously has a lot of parallels to this. And for anyone who hasn't looked into that poem, it's about dissecting pigs. And of course, pigs are a derogatory term for cops. So I think that the joke can be understood there. Something I picked up on as soon as the story broke was that it happened on Portland Avenue. The killing of Renee Good was on Portland Avenue. After George Floyd, the longest protest in the nation for George Floyd was in Portland, Oregon. And the very next day, there ended up being another shooting of a married couple, supposedly connected to Tren de Aragua, by federal forces in Portland. So that was the follow-up story the day after Renee Nicole Good's killing. And if you follow the details, they said the killing of Renee Nicole Good happened between 33rd and 34th Street. Between 33rd and 34th, when the police detective or the chief of police there, I believe his name's O'Hara, unleashed the news. He said it was between 33rd and 34th. And then later, when they released the agent's name, they told us that he was dragged by an illegal immigrant this past June by his vehicle, and he ended up getting 33 stitches, 20 in one place and 13 in another. So 33 stitches. And then the man shot in Portland the next day was reported to be 33 years old. And of course, when the George Floyd rioting started, it began on 33rd Street. And it was compared to the Rodney King beating, which happened on March 3rd, 3-3. And don't forget, it was 33 years this year since the Rodney King riots, as we deployed the national, or at least Trump deployed the National Guard to LA. It's just a whole nother thing. And that was also 33 years after NAFTA was passed by the federal government, where politicians like Byron Dorgan said, if you pass NAFTA, you're going to destroy Mexican agriculture, and these people are going to have nowhere to go but to the United States to seek employment. So anyway, this 33 pattern, I mean, if you pay attention to news, that number shows up in the news all the time, 33. And this Gematria thing, Masonry equals 33. So does secrecy. So does order. So does federal. That's all in the same cipher, the alphabetic order with numerology. The phrase false flag equates to 33, as does race war, which would tie more in with Rodney King and the rioting starting on 33rd Street after George Floyd. But this 33 number is powerful. And I think the larger component of 33 is the reason Masonry venerates 33 is because of Kundalini, which is about spiritual ascension up the 33 bones of the human vertebrae. Interestingly enough, the word person and the word people and the word society, they all equal 33 as well. It kind of has an asterisk next to it. In numerology, 11 and 22 are recognized as the master number and the master builder number. Some people recognize 33 as the master teacher number. Funny enough, the word teacher equals 33. But anyway, this 33 number is special. And again, it's supposed to be about spiritual ascension, but so often when it's used in the news, it's more about taking people to a low energy spot and an angry spot and a fearful spot and a divisive spot. It's like an inversion of what it's meant to be. Again, it's kind of like how there's a good half and an evil half to this. And again, this 33 number, it's so massive. I just to skip to another point, one of the biggest rituals that kicked off this century was September 11th in New York. There's only 4 states that equal 33. One of them is New York. And a lot of people didn't realize this, but 33 years before it happened, it was 1968. That's the year that 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. It's the year that World Trade Center construction began in New York. It's the year that 2001: A Space Odyssey came out, a movie also about technology overtaking man, which becomes more and more relevant as the century pushes on. It was the year Boeing debuted their jumbo jetliners. All the planes on 9/11 were said to be Boeing, and the man who founded Boeing went to Yale, just like the Bushes. Pan Am, the airline, was also founded by a member of Yale, and people overlook it, but Pan Am 103 was how Islamic terrorism got introduced to the world. Bin Laden's birthday was the 10th day of the 3rd month, like 103. There's a lot more about this, but the point is this 33 number and performing rituals with the number 33 years after an important anniversary, kind of like what I just brought up with NAFTA and all the Mexican flag protests as the National Guard was deployed earlier this year. Again, it's a signature number that's important to Masonry, that's venerated. And sorry, I got a little tangential. Your original question to me when I went on this tangent was, what was it again about?
Oh, I think, gosh, well, it was first about the Cabal. And then, events kind of going on today that kind of tie in with this. And
okay, you were asking me about who the Cabal is. So again, to connect it, I started with the Jesuits in the Catholic Church. If you look into who the fathers of Freemasonry are, most of the rites of Freemasonry were written by Jesuit priests. And I'd encourage everybody to look into the last pope, Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope. He would often do the hidden hand pose. Somebody's going to do a screen capture and act like I'm one of these people, but I'm not. But that's where they tuck their hand in. If you go through Wikipedia, a lot of people from the 1800s, their photo, including several photos of George Washington, who was a Mason, it shows them putting their hand inside their shirt. That's a Masonic pose, the hidden hand. Pope Francis would often do that pose. And just to make a point, I brought up all these 33s. I mentioned how the 33 comes from Kundalini. Kundalini equals 58, like Freemasonry, like Secret Society, like Rosicrucian, like Solomon's Temple. The Rosicrucians and Freemasons are related. Their secrets are in Solomon's Temple. Donald Trump, the apprentice, the first degree of Freemasonry is the entered apprentice. The first election he won was the 58th. He beat a woman. He's only beaten women. There's no women in Freemasonry. There's the Order of Eastern Star, but notice Trump can only beat women in elections. He won the 58th election the first time. The second time he won the 60th, and for the record, Donald Trump equals 60. He got 58% of the Electoral College. And the day of that election was, remember the 5th of November, which is the day in history that King James, the Jesuits, attempted to assassinate him. And King James would eventually die at 58, the same King James that has the Bible named after him. It's kind of why Trump had his convention in Cleveland right after LeBron won the finals on the real King James's birthday. You might recall Prince died that year. Purple Rain equals 58. He died 47 days before his 58th birthday. Trump equals 47. That year was the 58th Grammys. His girlfriend Vanity died the day of the 58th Grammys. When Bill and Hillary conceded to Trump, they both came out in purple. The color of royalty, just like how Trump came out to Queen We Are the Champions that year in 2016, synced up with Queen Elizabeth. For the record, Queen of England equals 58 as well. The point is, when you learn this knowledge, you start to see all this ritualism that's going on the world stage and how it really is a show, and where all these roads lead back to, from the royal family to your sports leagues to the Oval Office to your latest Hollywood release. They are using this knowledge day in and day out. And I know you asked me about where we're on 33. We were just talking about a current event, just that this huge divisive thing right now. There's so much more I could say about Nicole Good, but just all those 33s. Oh, and not to mention, I know that the age of her 3 children add up to 33. I think they said she had a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So add those ages together, just another 33 right in there. And again, I don't know how people overlook 33s because it's just like when the Charlie Kirk thing happened, the governor had to come out and say, we got him after 33 hours. And go back and look anytime Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump would shake hands on stage, they always do the Masonic handshake. Again, Masonry is huge in places of power. So,
does that kind of tie in? And for some of the audience tuning in, they might be like, "What are you talking about?" But does that kind of tie in with a satanic kind of paleo elite? Does that all kind of merge together? If you could kind of share your thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I'm sure you noticed when Charlie Kirk was shot on his tent, there were lightning bolts. Did you notice that? If you go back and look, the day he was shot at the Utah, or well, supposedly shot, there were lightning bolts on the tent that he was speaking under. And in the Bible, Luke 10:18, it's where Satan comes to earth in a bolt of lightning. Are you aware of this?
No.
Okay, so Luke 10:18, that's where Satan comes to earth in a bolt of lightning. And what's interesting, okay. Donald Trump, okay? We'll go from Trump and then we'll go to Charlie Kirk, since obviously Charlie Kirk advocated for Trump. Trump runs on mega. Are you aware that mega is the highest degree of the Church of Satan?
No.
Anyone can look this up. It's the 5th and highest degree of the Church of Satan, mega. Now, there was a funny joke once upon a time at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Are you familiar with this event that the White House has annually where they tell jokes? The White House Correspondents' Dinner? So if you go back to 2011 when Obama was president, he invited Trump to the White House Correspondents' Dinner this year. Remember, they were going back and forth with the whole birther thing? You remember this?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So April 30th, 2011 was the day of it that year. That was the Church of Satan's 45th birthday. The Church of Satan was born April 30th, 1966. So Obama had 2 jokes queued up that night for Trump. The first one showed the White House lit up like a Trump casino with Trump out in a hot tub with a bunch of girls in bikinis. And Obama said, "It's coming. Trump's going to be your next president." And I don't think most people got the joke that it was the 45th birthday of the Church of Satan, which also, again, happens to be 45 days before Trump's June 14th birthday. He also told a joke that night. He showed footage of the Lion King, and he said, "He's also right. I'm from Africa, and here's the proof." And he played that scene from the Lion King cartoon where little Simba gets held up over the cliff. And they put up Obama's date of birth there, August 4th, 1961. What's funny is in Gematria, Simba equals 44, just like Lion King equals 44. So a nice little joke for Obama, number 44. But yes, this joke about Trump going to be number 45 on the 45th birthday of the Church of Satan again, only for Trump to run on the highest degree of the Church of Satan, just like Ronald Reagan did, who used to live at address 666 in Did you know that? The Reagan used to house 66? Yeah, look it up. He did. He was the 33rd governor of California. For the record, Trump's family name, which they changed about a century back, it was Drumpf, D-R-U-M-P-F. That's the original family name that they changed. Drumpf also equals 33, just for the record, like Reagan was the 33rd governor. Hollywood equals 33. They were both actors as well. But here's the other part about Obama telling that joke. Barak in Hebrew means lightning. And you might recall a few years back when it was a national story, or do you remember when a Wisconsin married couple was killed on Obama's birthday by lightning near the White House in D.C.?
No.
You can look it up. It's a headline from maybe a handful of years ago that it said they were in D.C. to celebrate their 56th wedding anniversary when lightning struck and killed them both right by the White House. And the fact that they say they're a Wisconsin couple, Wisconsin equals 44 forwards, 55 in reverse, just like the word lightning is 44 and 55. And Satan also equals 55 since he comes to earth in a bolt of lightning. And I mean, on Obama's birthday, it was Obama. I think it was, it doesn't even matter, but about it being the 56th anniversary, Washington, D.C. equals 56, like there were 56 signers on the Declaration of Independence. That's a huge number with the Freemasons and the Jesuits, but I don't want to hit you with too many numbers at once, which I might already be doing. It's just when people pick up on this knowledge, they start to see everything they're doing is about the calendar. It's about the numbers. It's about the dates. To make a point, when they called the election for Trump the first time in 2016, they called it on November 9th. That was the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And Trump ran on building a wall, right? The same wall that Reagan said to tear down, right? This irony. He's running on mega. He has all these parallels to Reagan, but Reagan says tear down the wall. Trump says build the wall. Berlin Wall in Gematria equates to 45. So what a day to call the election for number 45. When they called the election, at the time they called it, Trump was on 248 electoral college votes. He'd get a little bit more, but when Bill and Hillary came out and conceded in purple, you can still go back and watch all the footage because you can still see it today. That's the beauty of the internet and all this archive stuff. You can see down at the bottom, they're saying the election's for Trump. He's at 248 right now. President Donald Trump equals 248. This last election where he came back to office, the country was 248 years old at the time. Are you aware that in 1988, Oprah asked Trump if he'd want to be president someday?
Yes.
Okay, she does her show out of Chicago, right? Chicago, the 312. So Trump alone, just the word Trump equals 88. So she asked him that in 88. When he won the election this time, the Pope was 88 years old. And here, just to make a point, there's 4 base ciphers we went over. With the alphabetic order, Trump is 88. He wins this election synced up with the 88-year-old Pope. With numerology, Trump equals 25. He returns to office in 2025. And you might notice 25% tariffs this. I'm going after Jerome Powell, who was installed last time I was in office on 2.5 over the $2.5 billion renovation. I'm threatening 25 this. I'm blowing up drug boats because each one of those boats has will kill 25,000 Americans. You just pay attention. He's just using this 25 number all the time. If you run it in reverse, Trump equals 47. He's back in office at age 47. If you look, Oprah had an event with Kamala 47 days before the election in Oakland, Michigan, which is the 248 area code. I mean, that's a small little town. Out of all the places they could have done this little thing, they choose the 248 area code 47 days before the election. In reverse with numerology, Trump equals 29. If he finishes his term, he will leave office again in 2029. So again, this is how this system of ciphers works. It's a system, and really, when you decode a word, you want to look at all 4, because so often in the ritual, all 4 of those numbers will be important, just like what I'm saying with Trump. Also about the election, Trump was 78 years old when he returned to power. Cleveland equals 78. He had his convention in 26 in Cleveland. Cleveland was the only split-term president before Donald Trump. And what's funny is the phrase split term equals 132. From Cleveland's second term to Trump's second term, 132 years later. And, of course, there's 132 rooms in the White House. Funny enough, United States of America equals 132. So does Catholic Church and Roman Catholic. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the Illuminati, which was founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt during the time of the Jesuit suppression, that was May 1st, 1776. From that day to the United States of America being named on September 9th, 1776, a span of 132 days. So from the Illuminati's establishment to the naming of the country, 132 days. Again, the Illuminati goes back to a Jesuit. The Jesuits are the military order of the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, how this all fits together. And, of course, Trump's Jesuit educated. He went to Fordham. You want to be on the Supreme Court or in the Oval Office, you better have some Jesuit education. I'll tell you what, look at the whole Supreme Court. Almost all of it went to a Jesuit school. Again, it's crazy how few people talk about the Jesuits. If you look into the beginning of this country, Jefferson and Adams both warned about the Jesuits coming out of suppression and subverting the nation. They just happened to die together on July 4th, 1826. Monroe, who was also spoke out against the Catholic Church, died 1,826 days later on July 4th. Lincoln blamed the American Civil War on the Jesuits. And again, Lincoln, what we don't learn about in our 13 years of programming as we pledged to 13 stripes is John Surratt, the Jesuit who got away from the assassination, but who was held accountable was his mother. His mother was hung for his role in the assassination of Lincoln. And it's funny, we don't really learn. If you learned about that in your school upbringing, it must have been because you're a teacher, because I don't think anybody else did. And I used to work in the school system. It's just not part of the curriculum. It's just like you don't really learn about Masonry, even though it's so prominent to the founding of the nation. They're not teaching us about the secret societies. They're just teaching us what they want us to know. So sorry, I am being long-winded and talking about a lot of things. Let me pause, and if you have any questions or want to ask something else, please.
Sure. So, if I understand this correctly, that basically in this universe, or at least to these people that who are part of the cabal, they recognize their mental model of it is that in this universe there are numbers, and then they have utilized ways in which to marry letters and numbers together to have meaning, and that they are carrying out their agenda in alignment with this universal numerical / word fill in the blank marriage to pursue their agendas, and that the things that they do, whether that's involved in sports or geopolitics, etc., is done in such a way to be in alignment with that. And the vast majority of people are bereft of this, and therefore are not able to take advantage of it. And you alluded to the good that exists in it. There's utility in it, but that this cabal uses it to pursue nefarious agendas. Is that I know it's kind of a simple overview. Is that accurate, more or less?
Yes, absolutely. They're essentially playing God over humanity through this Kabbalistic understanding of how God works. And by the way, that's where the term the Cabal comes from, because of Kabbalah.
And I'd love to hear your take, because I know, I have gone on this journey from literally when I started this show in the summer of 24, Zach. It was just, I'm just going to bring on different people. I know, and it went from that to, okay, well, I want to learn more about finance. I'm really kind of lacking in that area in terms of like understanding, like, how the economy works, and how that ties in with things. And you hear about central banks, and you want to hear about, okay, well, who's controlling this stuff, and then who's above them. And, so I've been trying to, understand. I feel like I have kind of a general overview understanding. And as you mentioned, Johnny Cerrucci, who holds a position. And I think certainly there's merit to that the Jesuits are the ones that ultimately kind of run the show. You hear different groups, people say it's the Jews, it's fill in the blank. And
Can I just address that real quick?
Sure.
It's almost the whole truth community saying it's the small hats, or whatever you want to call them. Again, look at what the Vatican controls in terms of landmass in this world. It is massive. It is huge. How many Catholic churches are in this country compared to synagogues? It's not even close. Again, there were no founders warning about ooze, or however you want to say it. I know we can't really say it. Sometimes you got to be careful with the Jesuits too. But again, it's laughable. We're not on their calendar. If they ran the world, wouldn't we be on their calendar? We're on the Jesuits' calendar, and most people don't even know who the Jesuits are. Again, there's a long history of the Jesuits and warning about the Jesuits. Not to mention, here we are in a nation that was largely created out of a movement that came out of the Protestant Reformation, because people wanted to get away from this tyranny of the Catholic Church that was the governorship of Europe. Again, taxation, indulgences, and just about the church. Think about how churches don't have to pay taxes. Who do you think at the end of the day is really controlling the system? The Vatican is a very powerful thing. There is no structure like the Vatican in the world. There's so much wealth in that structure. There's no library in the world like what's preserved in the Vatican. What, if you will, ooish armies have been out conquering the world? None that I know of, but well, some of you guys might be pointing it to Israel, but I'm going to talk about Israel here in a second, and how it's really a Catholic creation. And I think the reason it's created is there's literally a synagogue of Satan riddle, which fits in with Christian prophecy, not Jewish prophecy. And the church would be interested in orchestrating that, because they want people to believe in their dogma. And some people point to Israel to say that is the evidence of the synagogue of Satan, which is mentioned in Revelation. But there's a number that needs to be touched on, and it'll connect with what the church. You just asked me about the Church of Satan, or the Satanic Cabal too, and I forgot to hit on something. Okay, so my last book came out in 2020. I put this out in the middle of 2020. It told people that their Cooties 19 scam was going to end as soon as the Year of the Tiger came around, which was a correct prediction that's written in that book. And I told people why they probably didn't want to get those pokey dokes. And I spent a lot of times on the streets of America going across this nation warning people, and got super shadow banned for it for good. My channel's been deleted 20 some times, and I lost a lot of channels during the time of the cooties, and wrongfully so, because I was not wrong. But For people who don't know, that simulation for Cooties 19 was called Event 201, and it was put on by the World Economic Forum, which was then run by its founder, Klaus Schwab, a prominent Jesuit. Klaus Schwab, by the way, Klaus Schwab retired from the World Economic Forum on the same day the first Jesuit Pope died, which was last year, April 21st, Rome's birthday. Just for the record, that was the 111th day of the year. Klaus Martin Schwab, his full name equals 111, just like Jorge Mario Bergoglio equals 111. Just happened to die on the 111th day of the year, did the first Jesuit Pope. So, Event 201. 201 in Hebrew, the original alphabet with the letter and number system, relates to illumination. Illumination, light. In the occult, light is knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, you're in the dark. You're not illuminated. So, 201 illumination. So here's what's really interesting. In this English system, if you write out the Jesuit order, it equates to 201. If you write out Order of Illuminati, it equates to 201. That's what Adam Weishaupt ended up calling the Illuminati. And if you don't know about Adam Weishaupt's history, he was actually born to a Jewish family. His parents died at a very young age, and he was raised by the most prominent Jesuit priest in all of Germany. So Adam Weishaupt, had this knowledge and was connected to this thing. And again, he became a Jesuit himself and eventually founded the Illuminati in the time of the Jesuit suppression. But this 201 number, if you look into the history of the Jesuits, they've written in their own history book that they were preserved by Catherine the Great, the leader of Russia, during the time of their suppression, with 201 Jesuit priests. That's the number they claim. From Martin Luther pinning the 95 Theses, which started the Protestant Reformation, to the Jesuits being created by Ignatius Loyola, that was exactly 201 months later. Well, I shouldn't say it was 201 months and a few days later, but it was 201 months and days later. Ignatius of Loyola equals 201, the founder of the Jesuits. I just said Jorge Mario Bergoglio equals 111. That's if you use numerology. If you don't use numerology, Jorge Mario Bergoglio equals 201, the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis. And he was named after St. Francis of Assisi. And the day he just died on, that was 201 days from St. Francis of Assisi's death anniversary. Now, this 201 number is being used all the time in high ritual. When they just captured Maduro, they had to say they captured him at 2:01 a.m. They said it right in the press conference, putting it right in your face. We got him at 2:01 a.m. This number is everywhere when you pay attention. The only Jesuit ownership in the NFL that's public is the Rooney family, who own the Steelers. Mike Tomlin, their 19-year coach. By the way, the moon's on a 19-year cycle. His career just ended on a Monday moon day. But Mike Tomlin's career with the Steelers just ended with 201 wins. And the ref they had work the game last night, his name just happened to equal 201 in Gematria, and he just happened to be working his 201st NFL game last night as a referee. This stuff is going on all the time. The guy who's called the GOAT in the NFL, Brady, born 201 years after this nation was born, married to Giselle, born on the 201st day of the year, who, before one of his Super Bowl wins, came out and said, my wife is a witch and she casts spells to help me win games. If anyone doesn't look up the article. I mean, he announced that right before his Super Bowl a handful of years ago. And go look up the old ESPN article from when he got his 201st career win. ESPN wrote this big article, The Road to 201. Not 200. I mean, doesn't 200 sound like the more logical milestone? They didn't write that for 200. They wrote it for 201, The Road to 201. Tom Brady's last scripted Super Bowl, how many passing yards? 201. It might sound too specific, but you learn the ritualism. You see that these games are literally scripted from the final score to the box score. I could go into this day after day about everything they do in what I call the National Fixed League, which we just love to take advantage of. Last night, look up Rodgers' box score, 146 passing yards. He lost to C.J. Stroud, whose name in Gematria equals 146. And funny enough, home teams had 146 wins this year. It's a lot to get into, but this stuff goes on night after night when you're aware of it. You see just how scripted the games are. And again, it's because of Masonry. And also the Jesuits, who are the fathers of Masonry. All is number is the Masonic motto. When you watch football, they're always telling you it's a game of numbers. They couldn't have scripted it any better. This is the terminology they use all the time. Script, game of numbers. It is. That's I called my last book Number Games, because they're literally playing number games with you day in and day out. And again, sorry, I'm being tangential, so let me pass it back to you.
Wow. Okay. So it's almost like, and I shared this with actually Sarucci in one part of the episode. I'm kind of like, well, what's the point of covering a lot of these topics? I mean, if in speculating, and you bring on different guests, geopolitical analysts, this is going to happen, or market analysts. If so much of it is kayfabe, if so much of it is scripted and theatrical, how do you, I guess, rationalize and try and make sense of it?
How do I try to make sense of what exactly?
I guess what I'm getting at is, I guess it was kind of more of a comment that I made in that I guess if a lot of these events, by and large, to include sports that you're alluding to, are scripted or theatrical in nature, it almost seems as if it's like it's already set in stone. You just basically need to start to learn the system, and you'll see where the puck is going. But this notion that that there's agency, that there's a non-scripted element, it seems to be erroneous. I know it's kind of a mouthful and kind of more of a comment, but I guess basically it seems like it behooves you to learn the system to see where you to be able to read the script, basically. I guess, for lack of a better phrasing.
Correct, and that's what we do. Understanding the patterns that they work in, it gives you a predictive element for what their next move is going to be in the next result. And we've demonstrated how this can be used with the market, crypto, and especially sports. My community loves sports, so I spend the majority of my time there. But again, we've done plenty of demonstrations across the board, not to mention the news. I mean, listen, the last 3 elections, we spelled out exactly what they were going to do. Almost nobody thought Biden was going to win in 2020, but we were all over it. It was so obvious. Again, about this system, Catholic equals 35 when you run the alphabetical order forwards, 46 when you run it in reverse. And that reminds me, I need to come back to Israel, too. The first Catholic president was number 35, JFK, correct? And he was killed in Dallas at Dealey Plaza, which is the off-ramp to I-35. So JFK is pretty much killed on I-35 as number 35. And he was killed at age 46. Catholic is 35 forwards, 46 in reverse. There's 46 books in the Catholic Old Testament. By the way, in the 4 base ciphers, if you run the alphabetic order in reverse without numerology, Catholic is 145. There's 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament than Protestant Old Testament. And David Ben-Gurion, for example, equals 145. He was the first prime minister of Israel. Israel was created on the 14th day of the 5th month, like 145, like how there's this connection with the Catholic Old Testament, which is the Jewish section. By the way, State of Israel, the official title of that nation, equals 201. And David Ben-Gurion died in history 201 days after the establishment anniversary of Israel. It's kind of like how Netanyahu stepped down from power on June 13th, the day leaving 201 days left in the year, and then he came back on December 29th, 1229, which is the 201st prime, which is also Albert Pike's birthday, which is another story, because he wrote a letter about 3 world wars to come and published it on August 15th, the Jesuit order's birthday, and how the Third World War would be centered on political Zionism. But again, about Catholic. So it has these values. 71 with the alphabetic order, which is the same as Sol Invictus, which is what we call Christmas, which is 1225. The square root of 1225 is 35. Catholic is also 35. So is Jesus, the Roman name for Jesus. In reverse, again, it's 145, and in reverse with numerology, it's 46. Do you recall when Beau Biden, the son of Joe Biden, died at 46?
Mm-mm.
So Joe Biden lost his son at age 46, Beau Biden. He died May 30th. May 30th was 201 days before Pope Francis's birthday. Pope Francis, was the first Jesuit pope and the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican, which was named Domus Sanctae Martyr, which also equates to 201. And it was previously a hospital for the last Pope Leo, who died on the 201st day of the year. By the way, Catholic Pope equals 201. The Church of Satan, by the way. Anton LaVey, its founder, he died 201 days after his birthday, and also 201 days from the sitting Pope's birthday, Pope John Paul II. John Paul II replaced the 33-day pope who went to bed on the Jesuit order's birthday, or actually anniversary of being recognized by Rome, and never woke up again. There's that 33 too. They believe he was killed with arsenic, which equals 33, which is the 33rd element on the periodic table. A whole nother section. But this 201 thing and this Catholic thing. So Beau Biden dies at 46, 201 days from the Pope's birthday. The man who did the funeral for Beau Biden was the former head of Georgetown, the nation's first Jesuit university, which was established at the start of 1789, a few months before we got the first recognized president on the history books, George Washington, also in 1789. Leo Jeremiah O'Donovan was his name. Leo Jeremiah O'Donovan equals 201, like the Jesuit order. Leo Jeremiah O'Donovan did the funeral for Beau Biden at 46 and the inauguration for Joe Biden as number 46. Inauguration day, it wasn't always January 20th, just like the nation's capital wasn't always D.C. D.C. is where the Jesuits set up camp when they came to America. And notice, we get the first recognized president the year they opened their first Jesuit university in America. They moved inauguration day to January 20th because the majority of the world writes that date 20/1 like 201. But it's also the 201st day of the U.S.'s age when you measure from July 4th. July 4th to January 20th is the 201st day. Biden, that election on November 3rd, it was exactly 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. Like Catholic equals 46. The first Catholic president dies at 46. The next one, Biden, becomes number 46. And then what's funny is through his whole administration, all we heard about was Hunter and the laptop. JFK was killed during Sagittarius, which is known as the Hunter or the Archer. JFK shot in the time of the Hunter, the Archer, you know. And then Hunter Biden's birthday is the 35th day of the year. And you might have just saw that JFK's niece died at age 35, and it was announced in the news that she was dying on November 22nd, the anniversary of JFK's death. That was the day the headline broke that she was dying and going to die in the next year. Out of all the days in the year they could have told us she was dying, they had to wait till that day. And what's crazy is if you go back and look, Walter Cronkite is who broke the news of JFK's passing. And he began by saying, some 38 minutes ago, JFK died. In Gematria, death equals 38, as does murder, as does killing, as does RIP. JFK's niece just died 38 days after the news broke that she was dying. If you've never seen the movie Murder by Numbers with Ryan Gosling and Sandra Bullock, right in the words, they changed 2 of the letters to 3 and 8. So you have the murder 38 in there. Murder also equals 83, like the song Murder by Numbers by The Police came out in 1983. It's about how killing is as simple as ABC is 1, 2, 3. Prince wrote I Would Die For You for Purple Rain in 1983. He spelled it with the number 4 and the letter U, which is way ahead of his time. It's almost like he was sending a text message in 1983. U is the 21st letter. So 421. I Would Die 421. That's what day he died, April 21st, 421. And by the way, Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby, he supposedly wrote that song in 83. Do you know that he just performed Ice Ice Baby at Mar-a-Lago for the New Year's Eve party?
No.
Look it up. Kristi Noem, who's been a big person on this Minnesota Renee Good killing, she was really getting down and dancing hard. You can watch the video of it on YouTube to Ice Ice Baby. She was just loving it. Here's what's funny about that, though. From Vanilla Ice's birthday, do you remember the lyrics to Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby?
I don't. Embarrassed. No, I don't.
Remember this song, right? Ice Ice.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
To the sample of David Bowie. Read the end of the song when it gets to the gun shootout scene. You know, he's got a 9mm, just like that's what police and ICE carry, a 9mm. But there's this part about taking off with the foot on the gas on the car, okay? Kind of like how Renee Good, you know, she drove and got shot in the car. Not to mention she was shot on a Wednesday, which is a Mercury, and Mercury's the trickster, but also the god of transportation, so it has to do with movement in vehicles. But anyway, here's the point. Vanilla Ice, from his birthday, which is Halloween, the anniversary of Martin Luther King, the 95 Thesis, from his birthday to the shooting was 68 days later. His name in Gematria, his actual name, equals 68. The ICE agent's name equals 68. Donald John Trump equals 68, as does The Apprentice. And funny enough, if you run it in reverse, even Donald J. Trump, like how he signs his name on his books, that also equals 68. CIA equals 68. But again, this ice shooting in icy Minnesota right after the performance of Ice Ice Baby at Mar-a-Lago, when the lyrics, when you read it, seem to coincide with the details of the story. Again, you learn this knowledge, you start to see the way they really are doing this and performing these rituals, and kind of a joke on everybody, just kind of like Trump telling us that, or not Trump, but Obama telling us that Trump's going to be the 45th president on the 45th birthday of the Church of Satan as he runs on MAGA, the highest degree of the church. They're getting away with literally murder and just mocking us and expecting us to not get their jokes. What I always paint the analogy as is, it's kind of like if adults are in a room with a bunch of 3-year-olds and they're telling jokes that are just way out of the comprehension of the 3-year-olds. They know that none of these jokes are going to be understood. It's pretty much what's going on in the world every day. But at the same time, these can be understood if you just have the knowledge and the awareness of what they're doing.
So what events, I mean, based off your expertise, what I guess kind of high level overview of events more or less do you see happening? I mean, you hear a lot of talk about that we are in a World War III and that there is to be civil strife or, economic reset. Could you maybe share any research that you've done on that and where you see the puck going?
Sure. So the trajectory of things that should be obvious to everybody who's been alive and of age in the 21st century is we're going deeper and deeper into a surveillance police state. Again, 9/11 happens and they pass the Patriot Act almost overnight, which was about 40 years worth of legislation, which no one ever thought would see the light of day because it just was so anti-American. It wasn't what America was supposed to be about. It violated so many rights and liberties that are on the books. And again, we've now accepted it in the name of safety. And of course, Benjamin Franklin said, those who prefer safety to liberty deserve neither. But so, and again, I mean, if for people who aren't up on things, at the time of the Patriot Act, there was these new definitions that if you're deemed a terrorist by the state, you lose your rights and liberties as an American. You just saw Kristi Noem say this Renee Good was a terrorist. I mean, that's all it takes to be a terrorist? So what? She lost all of her rights and liberties too? I mean, that's why there's elements to these psychological operations that people should pick up on because they're warnings of what is to come. At the beginning of this administration, you had all the billionaires behind Trump, and Larry Ellison of Oracle was the most outspoken that day. Have you ever seen what Larry Ellison said in September of 2024 at the Oracle annual shareholders meeting?
I think he said something. He alluded to his fondness for Israel and Zionism, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's kind of a
that was probably part of it too. I'd encourage everybody to look up what Larry Ellison said September 2024. He was painting the picture of his future utopia America, and he was very specific about what he wants. He said, "I want an America where everyone has to wear a camera at all times, and everything is under total surveillance." And it will bring out the best behavior in humanity if everyone is watching. He said, we're now at the point where we have the technology and AI capabilities to keep everything monitored. And then here we are a few months later with him standing behind Trump right after the inauguration and talking about Trump giving all this money to fund greater AI research. And that day he spoke more. He didn't speak so much about what he'd said in September. That day he spoke about how, they can solve cancer overnight and but it's like, okay, this is the same guy who just said he has this vision of everybody in a camera with everything under watch. It sounds like George Orwell's 1984 on steroids. And, here I live in a small town now. I live in Prosser, Washington, a small town America, population of 4,000. 2 years ago, I happen to have two homes in this town. Not a very big town. 2 years ago, by the way, there's only 1 month that equals 33. October equals 33, like masonry, like secrecy, like order, like federal, like police. On the first day of October, they put up 8 cameras in this town, and they just happened to put up 2 of the 8 facing at my properties. Now, there's 4,000 people in this town. What are the odds that 2 of them were put up right next to my houses? And for real, again, I am somebody who's been shadow banned and suppressed, but I'm also someone that the mainstream media wrote their first article about in January of 2016. So I've been under the watchful eye. Conor McGregor just put out a post on Instagram mocking my post from exactly 10 years to the day yesterday. Again, I am someone that the Cabal is very much aware of. And now I live under police cameras that if I don't have these blinds closed, they stare right into my office. It's going to get worse and worse. Again, there already are cameras everywhere. There is CCTV everywhere. Nobody in a million years can convince me. 25% of the cameras in this tiny town were put up facing at my properties. Stop. Again, people who are dissidents and who speak out against this government, there's going to be a lot more trouble in the future than there already is. And to make a point, I've gone through quite a few weird things in my lifetime. Back when I was 33 years old, which was some time ago, that was back in 2016, there was a YouTuber who threatened me for Christmas Eve with my life, and obviously I lived through that. But what happened to me on that night is I had just traveled down to Portland, where I'm originally from, to be with my family, and as soon as I got down there, I got a call from the local police department that I better get back up because they didn't have the forces to secure my house, but my house was wide open to get into because a vehicle had just crashed through 2 walls of my house. So that was my Christmas Eve at age 33, a vehicle. And then they couldn't figure out what vehicle did it. But 2 walls of the house just driven right through so anyone could walk right in. Again, for people who speak out, it's going to get a lot more troublesome. 2017, when Trump took office the first time, he said, he'd like to get rid of all of his critics. He'd like to censor all of his critics. A lot of us on YouTube got deleted for the very first time. I'd been dealing with censorship all through the Obama thing and channels suppression and suspensions nonstop, but I'd never been deleted all the way. I got deleted all the way June 28th, 2017. A lot of us did. I can tell you what we got deleted for. It was for sharing footage of the London Bridge terrorist shooting, if you remember that, from June of 2017. The footage was caught of the police changing into costumes and posing as terrorists and spilling blood on the ground to pose as dead terrorists. It was all the police. There was no Islamic terrorist. It was a total hoax. This is what's going on in this nation. And it's sad more people don't know about that. But all of us who shared that footage, we all got deleted for sharing the truth. Anyway, the day I got deleted was on Elon Musk's birthday, June 28, 2017. A lot of us got deleted for the first time on Elon Musk's birthday. Then fast forward some years later, all of a sudden, Elon Musk is taking over Twitter in the name of censorship. That's a load of BS. I went through so much censorship once he took over that platform. I had to delete posts left and right. And then what day did I get deleted? I got deleted all the way off X where I was finally having success. I'd had 5,000 people watching my last live stream as Trump took office. And then a couple days later, just deleted all the way off X from the guy who's supposedly here for censorship. By the way, if you don't know this about Musk and Trump, look up what day Elon Musk was declared the richest man in the world for the first time. It was January 7th, 2021. That was the 78th death anniversary of Nikola Tesla. And in Gematria, Tesla equals 78, as does Jesuit, as does Scottish Rite, where the rites of the Scottish Rite were written by Jesuit priests. Trump retakes office at age 78. And then out of nowhere, it's like him and the Elon Musk team, which was the whole story at the beginning of this. But at age 78, Trump and Musk united. A lot of people don't know this, but when the real Nikola Tesla died, it was Trump's uncle who worked for the FBI who was in charge of auditing Tesla's research and papers. So there's this historical link with the Trump family and Tesla. And then Tesla has the 78 connection. For these guys to get paired up at age 78, I mean, please. And by the way, about 78, there's 78 cards in the tarot deck. The top cards are Trump cards. They bring Trump back at age 78. Again, Trump equals 25 like it was 2025. If you spell out tarot cards, the gematria of that's 119. Trump retakes office with the 119th Congress, like the first time they called the election for him on November 9th in 2016. Sorry, I'm being tangential, but yeah, the direction of things is this police surveillance state. No doubt at some point they're going to, they gave us the clues during Cuties 19 that they want to get rid of the paper money. It can transmit germs. But what they really want is they want everything digital so they can track every last penny. Again, I mean, if you can track every last penny, there's no more really cheating on your taxes. And I don't blame anybody for cheating on their taxes. What, you want to give money to this corrupt government so they can go bomb the next nation and send off the subsidies to some billionaire who doesn't need anything while most of us are paying $1 gazillion in taxes from income to property to everything else that's taxed? Again, just total eyes on everything that we do, every move we make, every money. I think that's where it's going. And the phasing out of humanity, writing seems to be on the wall with AI taking away all these jobs. Again, you go back and listen to things like what Bill Gates said. Have you ever heard Bill Gates' TED Talk from 2010?
Was it in it was in reference to depopulation, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken?
innovating to zero. He gave it almost 10 years to the day of Cooties 19 being the first confirmed case in the world outside of China in his backyard in King County when Corona means crown. Of course, the big needles there across the street from the Gates Foundation. But yeah, people should look into what he said at that TED Talk, Innovating to Zero. He talked about 5 ways to reduce population. At the very top of the list, clue was a space needle. What do you do with needles? You know what I mean? That was his number one way to reduce the population. These are the kind of things I wrote about in my book and kept losing my channel over. Speaking out on the streets of America, they just take down the whole channel, the whole live stream from educating about things that actually happened and were factual. And that's what's maddening about this world. We took down your video for misinformation. You're like, I literally read the quote for word from what he said. What misinformation? So yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good for humanity. And yeah, you want total tyranny. You want something more unimaginable than George Orwell's 1984. That's where we're going. And that's why I've been speaking out every single day since I learned about this in 2013. And really, I've been speaking out since way before that. I saw the writing on the wall when I was 18 years old and 9/11 happened. I said, come on, man, we got to wake up. Nothing about this story makes any sense. So anyway.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So a number of things I want to unpack, but I'll give a comment / question. Feel free to chime in on it. Yeah, it's interesting because when I watch or listen to some of these alternative media personalities, giving their take on politics or this going on in the world or that, there's never any mentioning of this, of course. So it's either intentionally done, or they don't want to talk about these things because they know that it doesn't bring any good in the sense of they will be demonetized, deplatformed, or they have unwanted attention, to your point, as it relates to those cameras facing inside your office. Okay, wow, this is and you know what, I'll just say is again, doing this show, even I never expected to be covering these topics. I mean, first of all, I wasn't even aware of these topics. And so it definitely has me thinking of of how to navigate this. Okay, so I'll just ask you this. So you mentioned about different events and the Cooties 19. I like that code word. I might borrow that. World War III. I mean, since you have this cabal and they are nefarious in nature, it's looking like they're going to get their way, because I don't know any good guys that are big enough to stop this other than a grassroots effort.
Again, it's funny. For people who don't know this, Albert Pike, he wrote a letter about 3 world wars to come. If you search for it now on Google, they're sure to tell you that's just a conspiracy theory. But it is a real letter, and it has a real date and a real person it's addressed to. It was addressed to Mazzini, the second leader of the Illuminati. It's dated August 15th, 1871. Pay attention when August 15th rolls around. It's always full of whoppers. Recently, the war in Afghanistan officially ended on August 15th. What August 15th is it's the Jesuit order's birthday. It's the day they were founded in 1534 in Paris, France by Ignatius Loyola. The gold standard ended in history on August 15th. It's amazing. There's certain dates that are very special to the Jesuits that just a lot of big events happen on. April 19th is another big day for the Jesuits. It's the day in history that Ignatius Loyola became the first superior general for the recognized by the Catholic Church. That's the day the Revolutionary War began. Of course, it's associated with Waco in Oklahoma City. A few years back in Canada, there was a guy who stole a Mountie car in a uniform, supposedly was a story, and drove up and down and shot people all over, and they lost gun rights in Canada from what happened on April 19th. And again, just a lot of events happen on that day. So just you start to realize these dates are only important to the Jesuits. And there's other ones too. July 31st is the feast date. I don't want to get into too many things, but August 15th, again, what's amazing is August 15th. It was I can't think off the top of my head. whatever is the 93rd prime number is what day the war in Afghanistan just ended. It's 400 and something. It was the 400 and something birthday of the Jesuit order, which is the 93rd prime. Afghanistan has been assigned the plus 93 international dialing code. And the thing about 93, again, how did we get into that war? We got into it with 9/11. And before 9/11 was the 93 World Trade Center bombing. And before that was the death of bin Laden's father on September 3rd in a plane crash of all days. And of course, on 9/11, you had Flight 93. This 93 is an important number to the occult. Aleister Crowley, one of the most famous occultists, worshiped this number. There's a lot to say about certain things, but there's certain numbers that are recurring in history. So for the war in Afghanistan to end on the Jesuit order's birthday that equates with the 93rd prime when it's the plus 93 international dialing code, this is perfect ritualism. And remember, that was a big divisive thing for people in politics. The right was like, look at Biden, he's completely incompetent. He lost his mind. We're leaving billions of dollars of hardware over there. We're going to be funding the next Al-Qaeda. Yeah, that's the game. That's exactly how they do things because it keeps people in this political divide. But you see, these politicians aren't really calling the shots. They are the puppets that then become part of this theater that keeps people locked into this game and not seeing the forest for the trees. Sorry, I'm being so tangential, but please go ahead.
No, yeah. Okay. Wow. So I guess, would you say that we're pretty much going to see major conflict based off? I mean, I'm assuming that you've run the numbers and
you asked me about World War III. Again, Albert Pike's letter has 3 world wars to come. Published in 1871 on the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th. Again, the Third World War is to be centered on political Zionism. Netanyahu comes back on 12/29, Albert Pike's birthday. I have 2 remaining channels that are still existing on YouTube. One is Gematria Effect News 22. One of the last videos I put up on that channel, if you go to it, you'll see it right there. If you look at the most recent videos, it's right there near the end of the channel. It was my prediction the day that Netanyahu came back. I explained in that video why a major war would start in Israel very close to Yale's 322nd birthday, which was October 9th, 2023. Notice the war in Afghanistan, or not Afghanistan. Well, the war in Israel began on the anniversary of us invading Afghanistan. For people who don't know, Giuliani, who was the 107th mayor of New York, 9/11 happened on his 107th day of his age. And then we invaded Afghanistan on 10/7. Military equals 107. That's the day leaving 85 days left in the year. The word Templar equals 85. So does Jesus Hominum Salvator, which is the Jesuit motto. Their logo is a Templar cross with IHS for Jesus Hominum Salvator. The Templars were the Crusaders in that part of the world, which we went into. George Bush referred to what we were doing as a crusade at the time. Not to mention he was a member of Skull and Bones out of Yale that gets their symbolism from how the Templars bury the dead in an ossuary. And Skull and Bones is also modeled after the Bavarian Illuminati, which again was founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt for how all these things intersect. But anyway, the prediction, you can go back and watch, was that this war is going to begin in Israel very close to Yale's 322nd birthday, because again, Skull and Bones, they're Order 322. The founder of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, he died on the 322nd day of the year. And by the way, he also died 201 days after the anniversary of the Illuminati's establishment on May 1st. With regards to 9/11, there were 2 twin towers, right? 2, and they became 0, right? And then they were rebuilt as 1. 201. Jesuit Georgetown's motto is both into one. There's a reason for this 201 beyond just the illumination thing. It also factors in with an important Jesuit motto, both into one, which is about taking competing ideas and blending it into their one world idea. And you go to Jesuit universities, they have the quotes all over their buildings. The Jesuits pride themselves on being the driving force of globalism. You know, like the New World Order, like a one world order. Again, that's why when people say it's small hats, it's like they're so small compared to the Catholic Church. They're so teeny tiny. But again, the Catholics are clever. They know to use them as the scapegoats. Anyway, there's no doubt they're leading us to a larger war. Again, but these people will work at a snail's pace. I mean, they've made it feel for the last couple years that it could break off any moment. By the way, about 201. So Ukraine, Biden and Putin met on Pearl Harbor Day, just before the war in Ukraine began. That was December 7th. And that was 201 days after the first ever Jesuit Ignatian year began. The first Jesuit Ignatian year began May 20th, 2021, for the 500th anniversary of Ignatius of Loyola, their founder, being shot by a cannonball. 201 days later was the day Biden and Putin met. And then up until the war began, Biden kept saying, you better not go into there. You better not go into there. And then sure enough, the war starts in the Donbass region, which is what Russia wants. They say, if we get the Donbass region, we'll end the war. That's what they want. Donbass region, 201. Okay. They've done so many little 201 things with Russia and Ukraine since the war began. But here was my favorite. For people who don't know, modern day Israel, a lot of those Uish people, if you will, their roots trace back to Khazaria, which is where the war is going on between Russia and Ukraine, which all used to be one nation, the Soviet Union. So on the 201st day of the war in Israel, with Israel and Gaza, that was the day that Biden signed off on $95 billion to be sent to Ukraine and Israel. And understand, $95 billion is symbolic. The Jesuits' original mission was to counter Martin Luther and the 95 Theses, and they were recognized by the Roman Catholic Church on September 27th, the day leaving 95 days left in the year. So this is another important number to the Jesuits, 95. A lot of people miss this joke in history. Martin Luther King Jr., who was born Michael King, who assumed the name Martin Luther after the Protestant Reformation leader, he was assassinated on the 95th day of the year. And 201 days later was the day we passed the nation's first gun control legislation, putting serial numbers on guns. That happened 201 days later. So you don't need to ask who's really behind the MLK assassination. And for people who don't know, MLK's family did get a ruling from a federal judge that there was a conspiracy by the federal government to kill MLK. And that ruling was not heard because it was during the trial of the century, O.J. Simpson, where, by the way, the body for Nicole Brown was found on the day leaving 201 days left in the year, June 13th, shortly after O.J. Simpson had just started Naked Gun 33 1/3. And not to go way off topic, but I'm sure in recent history, you remember the Brown University shooting from just a few weeks back. A lot of people missed the joke with that. The Heisman Trophy ceremony was that night, the football college player award. Heisman, the actual guy the trophy's named after, he went to Brown. The next day after that happened, you had a stabbing of Rob Reiner, supposedly by his son, in the Brentwood neighborhood, which is where OJ supposedly stabbed Nicole Brown. From the day that OJ died to the Rob Reiner stabbing was 613 days. Like Nicole Brown's body was found on 6/13, June 13th. O.J. Simpson was a Heisman winner, who went to USC, as was Caleb Williams, the current quarterback of the Bears. The very next day, the Bears beat the Browns. Brown University's mascot is the bear. The Brown Bears is what they're called. So the Bears beat the Browns the next day, and the Buffalo Bills won, O.J. Simpson's team. And both the Bears and the Bills became 10-4, like O.J. died on the 10th day of the 4th month. And if you look, the Buffalo Bills had to shelter in place during the Brown shooting because they were staying at the hotel directly across the street. And there's even more to this. But again, this is the point of understanding the number games and how we are. Not to mention the other big story that weekend was the Bondi Beach shooting. And the first thing they put out was we had a father and son stabbing, and then we had a father and son shooting at Bondi Beach. But the first thing they put out was the address of where the son lived, the shooter. And they had to show you in big print, if you paid attention, that he lived on Brown Road. Again, just we're being played with every single day. All these big stories are psychological operations, not to mention that was the anniversary of the, remember the shooting back in 2012 that if you talked about it, you got your channel deleted, the one in Newtown, CT, you know that one? The yes. Shooting at Bondi Beach with the footage of the sandy beach was on the anniversary of that. I'm not even going to go there, but because they still don't like if we talk about that one. But again, psychological operation. But by the way, December 14th is also a fateful date in history. That's the day George Washington died. I think that might be George Washington behind you. Is that George
Yes, it
Washington
is.
behind you?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Did
it
you
is.
know
Yep.
that George Washington died unexpectedly? And did you know a Jesuit priest was at his sign?
I know. I know that he had something to do with his throat, and he died at 67 at his place. But I had heard that there were some Jesuit presence, but as far as someone present there, yeah.
So what's amazing is Father Francis Neal was who was next to George Washington when he died unexpectedly. And understand, the Jesuits are known for killing people with arsenic. This is part of how their suppression came about, rumors of murder and poisoning people. You know, it's funny, when Cooties 19 got underway, Hulu put out the show Catherine the Great, and there's some Jesuits in there, and her husband gets poisoned with arsenic, and it was like, Catherine the Great, who preserved the order with 201 Jesuit priests right after the Event 201 simulation, is Cooties 19's breaking out. But anyway, Father Francis Neal is who was next to George Washington. Francis Neal is credited with bringing back the popularity of Jesuitism in America, because at the beginning of this nation, the Catholic Church was, to a lot of people, was not something that a lot of people were too fond of, in light of how they were trying to escape the tyranny of the Catholic Church in Europe. But what's funny is these Jesuits, man, the 201 thing. Francis Neal's birthday is June 3rd. June 3rd. He died in history on December 20th, 201 days after his birthday. But yes, he again. Sorry, was I still in the studio the whole time I've been talking?
Yeah, you're here.
Sorry,
Yep,
I switched
you're
screens.
good.
I wasn't sure if I messed it up, but I just want to check my notes to get the correct
Sure.
dates for Francis Neal. A lot of things I remember off the head, but that's the first thing I had to look up. But yeah, Francis Neal, the Jesuit priest who was next to George Washington when he unexpectedly died. George Washington died at 67. You know how this year there's this meme for 6'7", 6'7". You've heard about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
To
Yes.
our community, it's super frustrating to watch the news talk about and say, it doesn't really have any meaning. It's like, no, it has a major meaning. We've been talking about it for 13 straight years. In this gematria code, blood sacrifice equals 67, as does human sacrifice, as does killer, as does satanic, as does soul. This number is connected to so many celebrity deaths it'll blow your mind, including George Washington, who died at 67. And it might remind you of George W. Bush, who went by George W. His birthday can be written 6-7. Again, that rap song with the 6-7 thing, all the lyrics before he says 6-7 are about killing his ops. So it's like, okay, so the whole song's about killing, and you can't figure out what the 6-7 must allude to, and then he just says 6-7. And it's weird to think about how evil this number is in terms of the ritualism that goes on with it. And now you have all these young people just saying something that they don't know what it means. To them, it's just this funny thing to say. What I wonder in my mind is, if there really is a sorcery component to this, having all these young children just say 6-7 when this number is so closely associated with killing, does it bring about more death in the world when you have this cult that is preaching depopulation? For anyone who doesn't know, I brought up 1968 earlier. Look up the book, The Population Bomb from 1968, written by a Yale professor. The book happens to be 201 pages long, talking about how the world really needs to get rid of a lot of people. The Population Bomb, 201 pages. And just about 201. You look about every agenda right now going on, from the biggest killers of the 21st century, the wars that came out of 9/11, where 2 towers became 0 before they became 1. This push for a lot of people to be more into their same gender rather than the other gender. I'm not sure how old you are. I was born in 1980.
I'm actually turning 33 here on March 22nd.
So you're pretty young. You're pretty young, but also not too young. I was born in 83, so I'm about a decade older than you. God, I'm trying to think. Okay, so you would have been 15 years ago. So yeah, you were kind of born when things were starting to change. I mean, things have really changed. When I was a teenager, you wouldn't. Actually, I take it back. When I was in high school, I went to a high school that had a little more than 2,000 students. There was one openly gay man, and I thought he was so brave because, like, It wasn't a trend to be gay, and he was super flamboyant, and he wear bright, colorful stuff every day and sparkly stuff. And what was funny is by the end of our senior year, he actually did have a boyfriend, and they would hold hands. And but I mean, outside of that, just you didn't see. But now, when I go to the mall, that age group, like that I used to be, that you used to be, it's more likely I'm going to see two boys holding hands than a boy and a girl. I mean, it has become very common. And it's really become a lot more common in recent years with Bruce Jenner, who changed his gender, who used to, if you don't know, he's from Newtown, Connecticut. They took his name off the high school about the same time the shooting happened. But what's funny is the name he changed his name to, Caitlyn Jenner, 201. 201. And I could get into all the fentanyl stuff. By the way, fentanyl was that 1968 year. Corona, virus, that was coined in 1968 as seasonal flu. So we locked down the world over the seasonal flu. Remember, Lester Holt would tell us every night on NBC, flu cases way down, cooties cases way up. I'd be like, God, this is just like, this is maddening. Can he tell us that in 1968 it was coined as seasonal flu? My God. 1968, that's the year that the FDA approved fentanyl. Wow, all this in 68, the year of the population bomb book. And I mean, these are some of the biggest killers of the 21st century, all these things that started in 1968. So, I mean, 1968 is also when Papa Bush was at the CIA and George W. Bush graduated from Yale Skull and Bones. A lot of things happened in 1968. So anyway, let me pass it back to you.
Well, so, I wonder if some of these other people that have shows, whether they are in alternative media or whether they're just covering different topics, like I think of Sean Ryan or Tucker or Candace. I mean, I've seen some of their stuff. I don't know if they've really dived into what we're talking about, and it makes me wonder if they have or haven't, whether they are part of a psyop, as some have said.
What does Tucker Carlson wear on his wrist?
I don't know offhand.
Pay attention. He wears the red Kabbalah bracelet. He wears the red Kabbalah bracelet, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's never... It drives me nuts that people think Tucker Carlson's some kind of truth teller. This guy spent 10 years on CNN telling anybody who questioned 9/11 that they were some kind of idiot who should move out of the country. No, this guy's a paid-for propagandist who went to Trinity. And I know that lately the trend is to act more like you're a truther to get those ratings and those YouTube dollars. No, I would never trust Tucker Carlson for a second. And almost all the... Listen... The reality is, if you put out truth in this world, you're going to be shadow banned. You're going to be deleted, just like yours truly has been deleted over 25 times. You're going to have cars crashing through your house on Christmas Eve. You're never going to be promoted by the system. You're never going to be brought on Joe Rogan or any of these things. There's a lot of half-truthers out here and a lot of people who will never broach the subjects that we're talking about today because it just reveals too much. It just reveals too much.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I guess I better start thinking of something else to do. Is there anyone out there?
No. You got to do the right thing regardless. You got to do the right thing regardless. It's like me, man. People say, I can't believe you come back. There's nothing to do but come back. The day you quit is the day it's over. That's the day they win. So no, keep doing it. But just, again, if you're broaching the toughest subject, you're never going to make the huge money and get the huge views that these other channels do. You're put in the algorithm and you're put on a different tier. It doesn't mean you can't do well for yourself, but no, to me, you should never sell out. You should always do the right thing.
Oh, okay. So it looks like it's back now. It cut out for like 25 seconds or so. If you could.
I think I was just ranting about nobody should compromise for YouTube dollars or fame. If everybody just spoke truth, the world would be a better place. And it's like, I've thought about that. I've thought about selling out so many times, but if you become part of the problem at the end of the day, you just, how could you not regret it that you became part of the evil and you were the reason the world, because again, it doesn't, I mean, I got to admit, I do feel like I'm fighting a battle that's almost impossible to win, but I think that's the right thing to do anyway.
I presume that you I'm just, if you care to share your faith. I mean, do you I presume you subscribe to like a higher power. Is that fair? Or?
Yeah. I was raised Lutheran. Since about 12, though, I've really questioned what I learned in church. Ultimately, what I've walked away, I took what I thought was the good from my religious believing. You should be about truth. You should be about charity. You should be about helping others, especially if you're in the place to help somebody. I don't really subscribe to all the other dogma. And something else I noticed as a young person, I said, people got to stop fighting over their different religious beliefs. Because I realized, I was like, you know what? If I was born into that family over there, across the street, they wear magical underwear. I'd probably be the same thing if that was my mom and dad. Or, a few blocks down, that they're Muslim over there. If I was born in that family, I'd probably be Muslim. I don't know why everyone can't just accept that the culture you're born into, that's probably what you're going to do. But at the end of the day, there's all these commonalities, and there's good and bad in all things. But it's like, even though I think, for example, the Mormon religion's pretty funny, I remember 10 years ago, I was living in the Seattle area, and we had a bad windstorm, and my fence blew over, and these missionaries really wanted to help me rebuild the fence. I kept saying, no, you don't got to do that. But they just insisted, and they helped me get that fence. They hung around all day, these missionaries, and I just thought, you know what? Even though I think this religion's pretty goofy, these are some good people. I mean, these are kind of people you'd want as your neighbors. I used to teach in South Seattle, where there's a huge refugee Muslim population. And what I learned, it was the first time I really interacted with Muslims, is I realized they were just so family oriented and how much they cared. And they were always in my classroom and keeping up on their students. And I noticed, I said, man, the American parents, they're not like this. But look at how family oriented these aren't bad people. And you see like what's going on in the world right now. Oh my God, Dearborn's all full of Muslims. It's like, oh my, I could get into why they did choose Dearborn. There's a reason for that, because it's all ritual too. But again, that's what people need to wake up to. Come on. After 9/11 and a decade of fear-mongering of Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden, they're going to install this president named Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, you can't see that game there. And that's about the same. 2008, the same year that Obama won the election, was the same year that the United States started really accepting a lot of refugees from these war-torn countries that had a lot to do with the wars we were pursuing and instigating. So while we're scaring our own country about this Islamic faith, now we're just pouring Muslims into the Western world. We're being played with. And what people need to wake up to is, instead of like falling for the game and getting mad about it and thinking, oh, yeah, these towel-head terrorists or whatever, it's like, actually go out and meet these people and realize they're not that bad of people. It's just, anyway.
So we spoke about you referenced Tucker earlier, and I referenced Candace and some of these other people. Is there anyone out there in alternative media or who have a presence that you feel are worth listening to?
Definitely not Candace Owens. She converted to Catholicism the week of her 35th birthday, like Catholic equals 35. The day she met with Erica Kirk was exactly 33 weeks after her birthday. After what? After she made a big point, and I did see her stream where she made a big point about, this doesn't make any sense that they said they captured Charlie Kirk after 33 hours, because I have the time logs here, and it was actually, I forget what she said, 31 hours or something, not 33. But then in that same broadcast, she goes, by the way, I'm the Mason of Turning Point. Then she's meeting with Erica Kirk exactly 33 weeks. I mean, that you can tell all these people are controlled. And look at all the money they're making. I mean, she's probably, how much money do you think she's made off live streaming just since Charlie Kirk died? I'd wager millions of dollars in terms of ad revenue, millions of dollars off streaming and leading people nowhere. Meanwhile, I haven't been able to get any views for 5 years on YouTube until Charlie Kirk died. I finally had a video taken off, and it was taken down for hate speech almost instantly. There was no hate speech in it. YouTube, what I appreciated, though, is for the first time ever, YouTube sent a justification for what hate speech was. And what it said in small print under hate speech was, it said, you questioned an official mainstream story. And I said, look at that definition of hate speech, questioning an official mainstream story. And long story short, all I pointed out about Charlie Kirk when the news broke is he died 88 days after Trump's birthday. I've called Trump Mr. 88 since 2015 nonstop, because, again, Trump equals 88. Again, the Mar-a-Lago raid on 88. This year he put up 88-foot flagpoles at the White House. But yes, it was 88 days after Trump's birthday. Trump equals 88, just with the alphabetical order. If you use numerology, the Republican Party equals 88, just like Turning Point USA. Right after the Charlie Kirk shooting, we had a shooting in Evergreen, Colorado. Do you remember that? There was a shooting in Evergreen, Colorado right after at the high school.
Mm-mm.
Oh. If you look on the day of the Charlie Kirk shooting at Evergreen, Colorado, that happens to equal 88. That's what year Erica Kirk was born too, 88. She went to Regis, the Jesuit university there in Denver. That's where Erica Kirk went to school, the Jesuit university. I call Fordham the 88 University. That's the Jesuit school that Trump went to. But the thing about that high school shooting at Evergreen, who graduated from that high school in 1988 was Trey Parker, who the South Park creator. Trey Parker graduated from the same high school where the shooting happened. And are you aware that South Park had just recently done an episode of Charlie Kirk?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it came out August 6th, the South Park episode making fun of Charlie Kirk. So a month and 4 days before the shooting. And I'm sure you heard about the Snake Eyes movie with the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Trying to think if I have.
That's the Nicolas Cage movie with the assassination of Charles Kirkland in the movie.
Oh, you know, I did hear someone mention that. Yeah, a little bit.
So that actor who played Charles Kirkland just happened to be 88 years old when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And what's important about that movie is Snake Eyes. We're in the year of the snake. And that movie, the character that's sitting next to Charles Kirkland when he's assassinated is supposed to be Donald Trump, literally in the movie. He's a casino owner in New Jersey who hosts fights. So he's assassinated at a boxing match. And you might recall that the Canelo fight happened right before it was 3 days after the Charlie Kirk assassination. I take it back. It was September 13th. But if you watch the movie Snake Eyes, a boxer's paid to take the fall, and the storyline for him is he's never been knocked down in his career. So he gets knocked down for the first time in the fight, and when he falls, that's when the assassination happens as soon as he hits the mat. But he's also paid by the Trump character to take the fall. Canelo Alvarez, who lost that following weekend, what he was also marketed as is the boxer who had never been knocked down. So it's like, what are the odds of all these things? And of course, Nicolas Cage is in that movie, who's actually Nicholas Coppola. He's Francis Ford Coppola's nephew. And there's a whole lot more to it. But the point is predictive programming, and this is, okay. Remember, Trump got 312 electoral college votes, right? That's the Chicago area code. And Kabbalah had their DNC in Chicago. And by the way, do you know what Kamala Harris's father's name is?
No.
His name is Donald J. Harris, like Donald J. Trump. And her father was an associate of Huey P. Newton, the founder of the Black Panther Party. Huey P. Newton died at 47. What day did Kamala speak at the DNC in Chicago? Chicago is also known for the assassination of another Black Panther, Fred Hampton. But she spoke at the DNC on August 22nd, the anniversary of Huey P. Newton dying at 47, as she's running for 47, just days from Oprah having her thing with Kamala 47 days before the election. But again, this 312 thing. Who died the day they called the election for Trump? Do you know who Tony Todd is, the actor? Tony Todd died the day they called the election for Trump this year. He's most known for playing Candyman, the horror movie set in Chicago in the Cabrini Green housing projects. Have you seen Candyman?
No.
Okay, a horror movie that was actually remade recently, but it's set in Chicago. So he died the day they called the election for Trump. Tony Todd, who wasn't that old. And then, again, just this whole Chicago thing. Where's Charlie Kirk from? Isn't he from the Chicago area? Charlie Kirk's from the Chicago area, if you didn't know that. You know, he dies at...
Was not aware.
Okay, he's from the Chicago area. Yeah, I'm sure you know who Nick Fuentes is. He's another Catholic from Chicago. And I don't know if you saw it, but Candace Owen, she said that Charlie Kirk was a Protestant, but he only went to Catholic Mass. What Protestant is going to Catholic Mass? Stop it. But she dropped that in one of her streams. So I guess this is the reason to watch some of these controlled ops, is because they're just dropping gems if you're actually paying attention about who runs the world. But again, you have all these prominent Catholics from the Chicago area, along with this new, again, the Pope died on the 312th day of Trump's age after 312 electoral college votes. And then we get the first Pope from the 312 Chicago. Notice the Bears are having a great year this year. The day of the Charlie Kirk Memorial in the Cardinals Stadium. The Cardinals started in Chicago. The Bears just happened to win with 31 points. Also, about 31 and Charlie Kirk. His birthday is October 14th. And that's the day in history that the Superior General, the current one, who's the 31st Superior General, was installed as the Superior General. That happened back in 2016, the same year that Trump won the election, 2016. This year, on the anniversary of the Superior General being installed, Erica Kirk, which was also Charlie Kirk's birthday, she got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the first ever one with a cross on it, right? Like the Catholic Church and the religion and the cross. Again, the Superior General, it's a military title because the Jesuits see themselves as the military order of the Pope. They claim to have influence with 112 militaries in the world. And no doubt the U.S. military, Pete Hegseth was chosen as the nominee for Secretary of Defense on November 12th. That was the Superior General's birthday, for the record. But what else was funny is right after the Superior General turned 76 years old, the headline came out that Trump was the first Republican presidential candidate to get 76 million votes. It's like, look at this, man. On the Superior General's 76th birthday, this is the headline. So, again, I'm skipping all over, but I'm also just trying to throw you artifacts. I hope it's making sense of just how all these little number games are played day after day and how it really does all trace back to the Jesuits if you're paying attention.
Got it. So then, how can I, for example, or just your average Joe listening, I guess what steps should they take? I mean, apart from following you to better educate themselves, and then also, how can one decipher their own? I guess the term is esoteric, or understand their. If I understand this correctly, like master numbers, like their name, their date of birth, where they're born, the day and time they were born, etc. How can one utilize this information in a way that's conducive to their lives or their community?
Yeah, ultimately the most important questions. Okay, so my point has always been that they are manipulating us, and you will not get manipulated by them if you see the games they're playing with you. And the best way to not get manipulated is to understand the games they're playing and have the evidence and ability to see through the ritualism. Like I was preaching, listen, we were standing out in the freezing cold, March 13, 2020, and pouring rain in Seattle. That was the day Trump declared the national state of emergency for Cooties 19, which was 2 days after the pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization. By the way, if you spell out Corona, virus, pandemic, that equals 113, just like 11/3, the day that they declared the pandemic. And that number goes, that's interesting because that number goes to the Talmud, which has to do with who can lie to who. And by the way, there is a history of the Jesuits. The Jesuits were a merger of Catholicism and Judaism, if you will, because Martin Luther, the leader of the Protestant Reformation, targeted both faiths. In fact, he said there can't be decent society if these religions continue to exist. That's why a small mustache guy, I forgot to mention earlier, it was April 20th, small mustache guy's birthday, that we passed the 95 million in Congress, and then Biden signed off on it on the 201st day of the war when we sent that 95 billion to Ukraine and Israel. So small mustache man was even part of the joke. And by the way, if you look up small mustache man's birth certificate, his name is Adolphus Hitler, which equals 201, and he did model the SS after the Jesuits. But anyway, come back to your actual question about, again, having the knowledge to not be manipulated by what are psychological operations. I told you about all the 33s with what's going on in Minnesota. Section 33 of the U.S. Army Field Manual is the psychological operations section. There's a reason they put 33 on all these psyops, and that's another one. But again, what I was preaching out in front of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with a group of people, I gave out $2,500 in hoodies that day to get, to get as many people out there gathered as we could. We got Cairo 7 of Seattle News to come out and interview us. Sadly, they didn't put the interview on TV, but we were educating about Event 201 and, again, how people needed to stand against it. I mean, we're putting everything out there, just where Corona came from in 1968. Had the whole world been armed with the knowledge we were, they wouldn't have complied with the lies. By us complying with the lies and staying home and not going to work and not going to school, by complying, it allowed them to do everything that they did. Siphon a bunch of wealth to the billionaire class. A lot of people got put out of work because people went along with these obvious lies in this planned agenda. Again, some people aren't even here anymore for all kinds of reasons. Some people off themselves. I remember at the beginning of it, CNN literally had a segment where they reported that the experts determined more people would self-delete from the policies and lockdown and what would come from the consequences than from the actual virus. And I thought, okay, for CNN to report this right now, that right there, if that's what the experts know, then this should not be happening. And then you got guys like Anthony Fauci, who a decade earlier were telling people that he wasn't even a big fan of pokey-dokes, and he was all about natural immunity. Again, had everybody not complied, they wouldn't have been able to get away with their agenda. And think about what came out of their agenda. Oh, now they're going to send you checks in the mail. I told everybody that day, I said, if the government has to print out this much money to send us checks, guess what? That reduces the value of the dollar. This is how inflation happens. I said, you get this little chump change check right now. I said, just watch in a few years how much stuff costs. And here we are. Here we are. I mean, you're spending way more per year in your grocery bill than what you ever got mailed from the government because all that money is with major interest on top. Again, if people understand what's going on, they're saying, no, I don't want those checks. No, I just want to go to work. Let me get sick. What'd you say, 99.9% survivable? I'm not afraid of that. Again, the only people who died, for the most part, were people who went to the hospital where was the hospital not incentivized to have people die there? Because didn't they get, $30,000 if somebody died there and it was from cooties? There's so many people in this nation who know the story that their loved one died in like a car accident, and the hospital asked them for permission if they could say they died from cooties. This is the kind of stuff that was going on in this nation. My wife works in the medical field. She saw an illegal immigrant who had passed out in a field, who was taken to the hospital. They could not identify this man, and he would not share his identity. When they nursed him back to health, they wouldn't release him because they wanted to figure out who they could bill. My wife comes into work on a Friday, and she reads the sheet for this man because he's not there. In the middle of the night, he had died from cooties 19. He wasn't even sick. This stuff was going on in this nation, you guys. And we have just marched along. I could tell you so much more because my wife does work in the medical field, but she'd be mad if I even just shared that right now. But that is 1,000,000%, 100% true story. This is the kind of stuff that's going on in this nation. Everyone who's so taken right now by Renee Good, the poet who wanted to dissect pigs, they're getting played with. You're getting played. If you fell for George Floyd, George Perry Floyd, his full name, 201, compared to Adama Traore's death in Paris, France, who died exactly 201 weeks earlier on the 201st day of the year. Out of George Floyd came the tearing down of Confederate statues. They tore down the Albert Pike statue in D.C. on June 19th, a year to the day of it becoming a holiday. Then 201 days later, January 6th happened and the Confederate flag flew. Confederate equals 201. All of this stuff is ritualism. And you look at the people of this nation, they're all caught up in January 6th, George Floyd. What's going on now? This is the problem. If people had on, by the way, have you ever seen Roddy Piper's They Live?
Oh, I've seen clips of it. I've seen clips of it. I have to sit down and watch the whole thing. But yeah, great. Yeah. I know it's a
You
good
should
movie.
watch that movie because it's kind of hokey, but it's a great analogy for having the knowledge to see what's going on. For the record, that movie came out 201 days after his birthday. He tweeted on September 27th, which is the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by Rome, that it was a documentary. And then he died at a very young age, unexpectedly, on the anniversary of the Jesuit founder dying, July 31st. I don't think that's an accident. Cabal 54 is the enemy of the world in that movie. Jesuit order equates to 54, and their headquarters is the Church of the Jesu, Building 54. The word sun, S-U-N, also equals 54, like their logo's the sun, which the Catholic Church venerates. But again, what I'm trying to say is with the knowledge, if people were armed with the knowledge and could pull themselves out of the psychological operations and the divisive tulip, the two-party system where all of our elections are rigged, it kills me. I can't believe that people don't know the U.S. elections are rigged. Come on, you guys. In 2000, I was 17. I couldn't even vote. I was a senior in high school. The election came down to Florida, where Jeb Bush was the 43rd governor, like Papa Bush was the 43rd vice president. And then because of what happened in Florida, George W. becomes the 43rd president, not to mention in Gematria, Florida equals 43. But that was just the most obvious rigged election ever. Then Bush and Kerry are running against each other, two Skull and Bones members. In 2004, Kerry's just letting Bush get away with this murder at the debate where it should be easy for any middle school student in the U.S. to just slam George W. Bush, as poor as he is with the English language. It was just 2008, a decade after Tupac's Changes with the lyrics, we still ain't seen a black president. We get hope and change with Barack Hussein Obama, elected number 44 years after the Civil Rights Act, not to mention hope equals 44, like the image on his likeness. And then Trump, the apprentice with the church. Again, nobody should be, all of the emotional energy should be pulled out of these psychological operations. Again, imagine that their spell and their games don't work with the American people. Then what has to happen is a revolt, a real revolt. No more. Again, that picture in the background, back at that time, this nation was supposed to be founded where you're not taxed on your income. We're paying so many taxes, including on our income and everything else. You own a home. Do you really own the home? I mean, you might have your mortgage paid all the way off. You still owe a fortune in property taxes. I have to pay so much in property taxes as somebody who has rental properties. It's ridiculous how much I have to pay in taxes. And what do I want to pay them for? For the schools? The schools where now 50% of the students are obese and they're just learning more and more BS every year and getting their minds indoctrinated. It seems like people are getting dumber and dumber. Please, look at these Indians. You go to here, the whole West Coast are where all the best jobs are in the nation. All the best jobs are in big tech. Do you see any Americans working there? No, you got these Indians that have an education where they spend pennies on the dollar compared to here. So don't tell me we need more money for our schools. What we need is actual education, not indoctrination. Let's learn grammar. Let's learn logic. Let's learn math and science and stop spending all this time learning about Paul Revere rode through the night and said redcoats are coming. I mean, imagine a guy riding his horse in the middle of the night, screaming out redcoats. Everyone's just asleep through the night. All we're learning is a bunch of crap. Again, that's why the U.S. intelligence shows it. They're not working where the best jobs are. Foreigners are, whose education's costed nothing compared to ours. We're spending $1 gazillion per student and raising future Walmart workers who are no longer needed with the AI and new checkout systems. So again, there has to be an awakening, a stop getting played, and stand against austerity. Imagine if instead of every gathering on the weekend to go watch the rigged football games, you know what? We're going to go stand out this weekend and say, you know what? I'm not showing up to work on Monday if I don't get all of my paycheck this week. I'm done with income taxes. I don't want my money sent over to Ukraine and God knows what other war and remove this leader and bomb this place. Oh, right now we're just spending a casual $200 million a day in Venezuela. How many communities in America have needed an intervention for decades and the federal government hasn't spent one penny there? Other than building some prisons so they can siphon them out and put them in a cage and use them for corporate slave labor. Again, this is what has to happen. And then your question about understanding your numbers, you can do that. There is both of my books, I end both of my books talking about the organic side, what I call the organic side of the code. There is something very interesting of knowing about the organic side. It's not the passion of my work, because my passion is to expose this tyranny and this deceitful, lying system we live under that just drives me nuts. It's been driving me nuts more and more since, again, 9/11, I was 18 years old. That day really irked me because I saw what a lie it was. And the thing that irked me too is I almost signed up for the military the summer before. A recruiter told me there will never be another war in your lifetime. There's never been a better time to join the military. I always think back, had I taken his advice and joined, how many tours I would have been. Would I even still be here? Would I even have my limbs? Again, being lied to in so many ways. I grew up in the time of before cell phones, and people were just starting to get cell phones when I was in high school. And we'd come home to the voice recorder. There'd be 10 messages every day. Skip through 10 messages of all the recruiting military branches calling to get you to come in. And thanks to my mom, who told me, what this nation really does is say that's some monster over there, and we need to go there, and then we go kill some more brown people. And I don't think she was wrong one bit. But anyway, about your own numbers. Here's how you get your own numerology number. We talked about in the beginning how you calculate a date numerology. So you just take your date of birth and you add it up and you break it down to that single digit. If it breaks down to 11 or 22, those are considered the master numbers. You're considered to have a very special birthday if your number breaks down to 22 or 11. Some people would recognize the 33. For example, here's what I've noticed about my own life and these numbers. When I first learned about this, I was just trying to gather as much information as I could about why numbers would be important, why ritualism and numbers would be important, how do they actually matter to our own life. I was in a Borders bookstore and I found this book on personal numerology, and it actually mentioned Gematria in the book. And he only showed one cipher, and it's the same cipher that Manly P. Hall actually writes out in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. It's the alphabetic order of numerology. And the person in the book, he said, decode your name this way. So, for example, my name is Zachary. So the first letter Z is the 26th letter. The numerology at 26 is 2 plus 6 is 8. So in this cipher, Z would be 8. A would be 1. C would be 3, and so on. So he says, decode your full name, decode your family, your friends, and you should see some really amazing alignments. And what I noticed is I said, wow, how weird. My full name equals 89. My dad's full name equals 89. And my mom's name doesn't equal 89, but her birthday is 8-9. And I remembered something that my dad always thought was so cool because he kept a scrapbook. He said, the day you were born, it was in the paper that was the coldest day ever recorded. And if you look it up to this day, it's still, if you type in what's the coldest day ever recorded, it'll say July 21st, 1983, which is yours truly's birthday. But the record temperature was negative 89 Celsius. And I thought, man, that is weird, because my parents don't know Gematria Numerology. And even when I try to tell this to them now, they don't get it. Their eyes glaze over, and my dad just wants to know if the Yankees won the game or how are the 49ers doing tonight. He doesn't care. So none of this was done by design, but it's like, this is so weird. And then the other weird thing is 89 is the 11th Fibonacci number, and then the next one is 144. My parents' birthdays are 144 days apart, and there's people that believe that the Fibonacci sequence is the invisible hand of God. So again, this Kabbalistic belief that God is the mathematician and he is working through these numbers and it is bringing these synchronicities into your life. I imagine that once upon a time, people were, observing these patterns and going, wow, there is something here. And then came this Kabbalistic belief that this is how God operates. And then along with that came somebody who said, could I play God? Could I do this pattern and have influence over people? And again, that's said to be the evil half of the tree of life. I've found that a lot of people over the years that they look at the numbers in their life and their spouse's life. And by the way, if I add up my birthday, July 21st, 1983, digit for digit, it'll equal 31, which breaks down to 4. So essentially I'm a 4. But that 31, what stood out to me is my best friend growing up. His birthday's March 1st, 3-1. And him and I were roommates forever. And I thought, that's weird. And then I noticed our other friend, our third amigo, who's also a good friend of us, he had the same birthday as me. It added up to 31. I said, whoa, that is weird. And out of all the people in the 13 years I've been teaching about this now, there's one gentleman, we call him Big Al. He calls me all the time. He's probably the most passionate about this. His birthday is also March 1st. So, I mean, that's kind of the fun thing of the organic side. And yeah, if you ever want to check it out, I mean, it is interesting, but I don't obsess over that. It's just more of a fun thing to me. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm a 4, so I should plan all my life events around 4. That is what some people do. But technically, if you start doing that, you're participating in what is a form of witchcraft. And again, some people will tell you that, not all witchcraft is bad. There's something called white witches. When I lived in Seattle, they stopped mailing me once I moved away from Seattle, but they'd always send me mails that they're a white witch, and they'd let me know they're casting spells to protect me every day. And I felt kind of weird reading. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I guess probably my Christian upbringing, you're supposed to say magic and all that. But again, there is supposedly a good half of sorcery. Still, that's not something I want to get into. I don't want to be associated with witchcraft, whether it really is good or not. I just want to show how these witches that are ruling over us are operating day in and day out. And some people do accuse me of being a bad person because I promote, using this knowledge to take advantage of rig sports. Listen, if you think that's evil or bad, fine. But that's not the way I see it. The way I see it is there's a rig system. All of us are trying to better our position in this world. Why not put it back on them and take advantage of their rig if you understand the game they're playing with us? I didn't get into this knowledge to make money, but it's definitely helped me improve my position in life. And that was never what was intended. What was intended was to expose evil, which is still what I spend the majority of my time doing. For case in point, spending all this time speaking about news, that doesn't generate any wealth for me. I could spend all my time just focused on making more money off sports in the market and crypto and all this stuff. I spend the majority of my time doing what yields me nothing because I think that's the right thing to do. Just like I said earlier, The day I die, I don't want to look back and feel like I didn't do everything I could in my power to, try and stop the evil that I see taking place in the world.
Well, that's yeah, that's well said, and something that that I hold as well as being important. It looks like well, I'm going to have to understand this better, and you have no doubt elucidated the looking back on events and seeing the connection. So now it's a matter of trying to some extent decipher what what events are in store, and using the numerology or gematria to arrive at a place in time as to when that might arise.
Okay, about this year. So it's 2026. Key part of that year is the final two digits. So it's a 26 year. The word dollar equals 26. The word bank equals 26. The word God equals 26. We have on our currency, in God we trust. The word Adam equals 26, or the name, I should say. And God makes Adam in the 26th verse of the Bible. But notice this year, we're starting off with this very interesting thing, the president going after the head of the Federal Reserve, the central bank. And he did it yesterday on January 12th. The Federal Reserve just turned 112 years old. Once upon a time, it was established in a very Jesuit ritual. Remember, the original bankers are the Templars, the military order of the Catholic Church, and their logo's in the center of the Templar cross in the middle of the Jesuit logo. The Jesuits claim to operate in 112 countries. Jerome Powell's Jesuit educated. He went to Georgetown, just like Trump's Jesuit educated. He went to Fordham. There's a lot going on with our currency. Notice gold had its best year since 1979, while Trump is 79 years old. Gold is the 79th element on the periodic table. Again, gold's best year was in 79. It's had its best year since 79, while Trump was 79 when he declared this the golden age. And by the way, I mean, it made March Madness last year a breeze. We had Todd Golden to win the championship on April 7th, way before the tournament began. We said, come on, in the golden age, how is Todd Golden, the former Jesuit product, not going to win March Madness down for Florida, where Trump spends most of his days golfing? But notice also, silver had a monster year. Silver is the 47th element on the periodic table. And again, being aware of these things, it was a good time to see where you might want to go with the commodities market and realize when gold is doing well, the dollar's not doing well. That's the trade-off. The dollar's becoming worth less for us. So I feel like we're getting close to a major event with the dollar. Again, just diversifying your assets if you have any, not a bad idea. All of the markets are totally manipulated. That includes gold and silver. I mean, case in point, why didn't silver start doing well 5 years ago? It should have been going up, but it just stayed stagnant. There was a way greater demand for silver in the world with all this green stuff going on, solar panels, electric vehicle batteries, way greater demand. How did the value not change? Again, because it's being manipulated. You start to realize everything is being manipulated by numbers. Again, so gold and silver surge in the time of number 47 being 79 years old. Knowing that 26 is very connected to the dollar, and the year starting off with going after the central banker, which caused some turmoil in the market yesterday, and realize that it's all insider trading too. These people make money on the way down and the way up. You can do the same thing if you can get ahead of the curve. I think they got plans for the dollar. By the way, XRP. I don't like crypto because I know these people control it, but cryptocurrency equals 78. All the crypto surged crazy as soon as Trump got reelected at age 78. He even put out his own meme coin. But that XRP, it has gone up quite a bit in value since Trump took office, but it's gone up and down, and it's come back down from its peak. But if you look at everybody who's connected to XRP, I mean, you got like the guy who essentially created blockchain, a lot of people that are connected to things like the Federal Reserve. The Ripple coin equals 201. Their whole lawsuit saga that they finally won was just nonstop 201 ritual after 201 ritual. If I remember right, it started 201 days from the founder of XRP. Again, that just like you have Illuminati symbolism on the dollar bill, 201 Illuminati, it's all over that XRP currency. So just ways to diversify. And again, knowing that they are moving more towards a blockchain. By the way, the Fed Now digital coin service thing went live on the 201st day of the year the other year. And do you remember how Bob Lee died right before that? Do you know who Bob Lee is?
Mm-mm.
Bob Lee is who invented Square and Cash App. Bob Lee, he invented Square and Cash App. If you go back and look, it was all in the year where the Fed Now system was recognized. It was in the lead up to that. But the Federal Reserve put out a letter on March 15th, which is the Ides of March, to remember the stabbing of Caesar in 44 BC. They put out a letter on the Ides of March saying, in the first week of April, we're going to begin certifying the Fed Now system, which will be finalized later this year. And it was finalized on the 201st day of the year, which is, by the way, that's the anniversary of the moon landing. Neil Alden Armstrong equals 201. The moon illuminated by the sun with the whole 201 connection to the Illuminati. Not to mention it was in the time of Cancer in 69 when the moon's ruled by Cancer and its astrological symbol 69. But anyway, Bob Lee ended up getting stabbed to death the first week of April on 4/4 after Caesar was killed in 44 BC by stabbing. So that's how you can see. Oh, and God, oh yeah, that's right. Eventually the media put out his apartment, the killer. They put out a shot of his apartment and he lived at room 201. It's like, look at this. And then the Fed Now system went live later that year. So, by the way, Bitcoin equals 117. It hit 117K for the first time on the 11th of July last year. Not an accident. A lot of people think Bitcoin's it's the thing to save. No, it's not. It's controlled by these same people. But yeah, I think diversifying your portfolio is a good idea. Yeah, I think big, again, we all know big things are coming, but you don't want to get caught with your pants down if something wild happens with the dollar and they have to move us to a whole new total digital system. So, yeah, I think that's something everybody should think about in 2026. Listen, the U.S. benefited more than anybody from World War II because all currencies got pegged to the U.S. dollar, which is what's made America what it is, the greatest beneficiary of World War II. If there's another world war to come, is there going to be a transition in power? Does it become a new currency that gets pegged to, or does that no longer exist? Do we enter a one world digital currency? Does it end up becoming something like XRP? Again, that's why they say wise men hedge their bets, and doing the research, you might have a leg up on what a major future currency is in this world. And to me, XRP is the one that's got my eye based on what I know about this gang and how many 201s are attached to that thing.
Wow, this has been very fascinating to me, and I'm very intrigued to better understand it and to position myself and others. Zach, how can people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
If you search my name, Zachary K. Hubbard, you'll pretty much find everything that I'm attached to, from my social media accounts to my books, to all my haters. I got a lot of haters out there that got a lot of videos hating. And by the way, I've made my books free to download. And if you just search my name, you'll find where you can download my books for free. So yeah, Zachary K. Hubbard's the name. And again, you just search that. You should find everything I'm doing. If you are interested in taking advantage of the world of rig sports, we're on it every day. We do bring up other conversations from time to time. If my community wasn't so sports driven, I'd spend a lot more time talking about the market and crypto and these things. We do occasionally, but just learning the knowledge, even through a sports lens, you can learn to apply this yourself to the market and crypto. And it's as simple as things like this. The last year I was really focused on the market with my community. You have to understand, I have hundreds of people coming for sports. When I talk about the market, I have like 10 people come in. So it's like, it's a time thing. It's like, okay, people are more interested in sports. But I told everybody at the start of 2023, I said, Apple's going to do great this year. It's going to exceed expectations. And Apple soared in 2023. It's as simple as Apple equals 23. And again, it's just using that what most people have alluded to as the most pure cipher, the alphabetic order with numerology. A is the first letter, P is the 16th, but the numerology is 16. Is 1 plus 6 is 7. So P is 7, P is 7. L, the 12th letter, 1 plus 2 is 3. A is 5. Add it up. Apple equals 23. Had a great year in 2023. Way exceeded market expectations. And again, a lot of this knowledge really is as simple as that. It's something that's hidden right in plain sight, just like the word occult means hidden. Growing up in elementary school, a lot of us had the border around the classroom where it was A1, B2, C3. We were learning to see I mean, it was there the whole time, but our teacher never stopped saying, by the way, you want to remember that A is 1 and B is 2. Man, had they told us that, a lot of us would have been a lot further ahead.
Amen. Well, I appreciate you doing what you do and putting yourself out there, regardless of any things that have arisen or vitriol thrown your way. And I believe this. And I'll just mention you just can't put a price on being aware of these things. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's for sure. And I look forward to having you back on at some point in time. And be well. And yeah. So
Well, thank you for having me. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. I am quite tangential, but I really appreciate it. Happy to come back anytime. And I'm hoping I can share this with my audience as well and bring you a few more subs.
I appreciate it. And no, I was very much intrigued the whole way through, and I appreciate the side notes that you provided. And wow, this is I'm going to suggest that a lot of people watch this that I know that are not tuned in. So I really appreciate it. Hey, I want to thank those of you who support the show. The show is on a number of platforms. So whether you're watching this from YouTube, X, Spotify, Rumble, you have a number of different options from which to choose from. And if you have suggestions as it relates to guests, please feel free to reach out. I'm always looking to bring on interesting people that I think have something unique to share. And if you're finding value in each guests in each episode, I encourage you to like and subscribe. I'm always having to hammer on the subscribership and following because, as you might surmise, when it comes to inviting guests on the show, people want to see the numbers. They want to see how many followers you have, how many subscribers. It's a vanity thing for a lot of these people, but that's the game. So if you're finding value in it, subscribing, liking, even sharing, that helps. And if you have suggestions, I'm always open to your feedback. And if I can be a resource even outside of the show, let me know. I'm blessed to have a great Rolodex. And anyhow, hope you're doing well. Be well. And I look forward to hearing your feedback.